Hey there, Dr. Mel here. Welcome to the Inspire Life podcast. And in this episode, I am going to be talking about what's called the upper limit theory. Some of us may be familiar with this when it comes to setting new goals, intentions, resolutions, or not during the new year. It's easy to get off track, especially during the holidays, especially when we have time off, we're out of our normal routines, and it's very common to default into old strategies. So my intention with this podcast is to share with you this notion called the upper limit theory and to help you understand that whatever intentions you're setting, whatever type of person or ways of being you want to become, you're never going to be ready. And here's why. So there's this notion called the upper limit theory, which the upper limit theory states in those moments when you start to feel either A, uncomfortable, you feel as though you're stretching yourself, you're feeling that slight edge of, new behaviors, new ways of thinking, new ways of acting, and you feel slightly uncomfortable. A, it happens then. It happens when we feel that tension, that little bit of instability because we're out of our norm, we're out of our baseline. Or it can happen and show up when you feel like you have all this great momentum and things are working for you, when you've maybe been choosing new habits, new behaviors, new ways of being, new ways of thinking, new ways of meditating, whatever it is, and you start to get momentum. So it can happen in one of two camps. And what starts to happen is you actually, in the upper limit theory, we reach this upper limit of our capacity, whether that's our actions, our energy, or maybe ways of thinking, and we start to doubt ourselves. And what can happen in this upper limit theory as we stretch our comfort zone, we stretch our sense of self, our sense of identity, we actually start to subconsciously self-sabotage. And here's why. Anytime we're adding in bits of novelty, meaning things that are new, things that are different, things that maybe we're not used to doing, things we're not used to thinking, ways we're not used to being, we start to self-sabotage because when it comes to novelty, the nervous system, and I've talked about this in other podcasts and in our online community, the Inspired Living community, I've talked about this. Anytime there's a sense of novelty, a sense of something new, the nervous system starts to see it as a potential threat. So our sympathetics start to engage, the unhealthy side of that, and we start to feel a little bit fearful. And our sense of self, who we are in this world, who we have identified ourselves, our ego, starts to get stretched. And as that stretch starts to happen and we start to expand our comfort zone, we get uncomfortable. And this feeling and the sense of feeling uncomfortable, if it becomes too much, we reach our upper limit and we actually start to subconsciously and sometimes consciously self-sabotage. And what this can look like is, well, let's say you've been on this trend of eating really well, getting to the gym. And what this can look like is maybe you start to press snooze and you miss the gym for a day, or you have that extra cookie, or you have that one extra helping. Or maybe when it comes to your thought process, you start to question yourself. Am I really capable of this? Am I really worthy of this level of success? Is this actually possible? Can I actually do that? We actually start to think into a lower pattern. We think into a past pattern because our nervous system isn't used to it. Our body, our way of being, our identity, our sense of self, whatever you want to call it, isn't used to it. So we default back into old patterns, old strategies, because that is where the safety is and that is where our comfort zone is. And I'm going to talk about this, the importance of having, yes, that stability in your life, but also learning and training yourself to expand your upper limit and to expand your comfort zone. So when you actually step into those new ways of being and new ways of thinking, it doesn't feel as uncomfortable. There's always, of course, a next level. There's a next level of comfort. There's a next level of discomfort. And it's important to train yourself into that and don't be so hard on yourself. I share this podcast because this time of year, whether you've set resolutions or you've set intentions or not, what's going to happen come February, March, April, May? You're going to get off track. because you're human, right? And part of this getting off track is one, maybe you go on vacation or you have something comes up where you feel unstable, you feel that sense of instability, and you default back because you're human. So what do we do in those moments of defaulting back? We've expanded our comfort zone, we've stretched our ways of thinking, we've stretched into new beliefs. It can feel uncomfortable. So what do we do when we feel that sense of fear and we start to default? Well, one, acknowledging that you're human, acknowledging that it's normal to, in moments of way too much instability, you're going to have a breakdown. So remembering that stability and instability is the ebbs and flows of life, and that's part of life. So if you stretch yourself so much into thinking differently, acting differently, doing all these new things, understand that you're different than the next person, and we all have our comfort zones. We all have, if you think of this ring around you, we all have our own comfort zone. And one of the keys is to continuously train to stretch that comfort zone. But again, if you stretch too fast, too much, too far, there is a point of instability. And too much instability, and I talk about this with my practice members, too much instability in your body, too much flexibility, too much movement, too much joint movement, I even talk about that in the spine, can lead to breakdown. And the other side of that is too much stability, too much stagnation, too much of feeling comfortable, you're contracted and you're stuck. That can also cause breakdown. What that can look like in your body is the joints aren't moving as much. The body is so rigid that any sense of novelty, any sense of new ways of being, thinking, acting causes so much distress in the body and in the nerve system and in life. So what's the key here? The key is to dance between the two, to start to acknowledge when you're hitting that upper limit, when to maybe retract a little bit or step into it. And part of that comes with training in different ways, training your mind, training your body. And I'll share some examples that I've used to help myself and my practice members overcome that threshold of their current upper limit and develop a new upper limit and make sure that they're not consistently self-sabotaging themselves. So again, coming back to my point I was making, the goal is to start to recognize and acknowledge when you feel like you're hitting your upper limit, when you feel like you're moving into self-sabotaging behaviors, and really become aware of, okay, am I feeling stretched? Am I feeling like, wow, I am having a lot of success in things? Is this actually possible? To catch yourself, to become mindful of your thoughts, mindful of your habits, and mindful of these new ways of being that you're stepping into can actually be your new way of being. It can actually be the new way because you are worthy. So recognizing when you fall into those patterns and habits, when you fall into those little thoughts, they come in just little droplets like, am I worthy of this? Is this actually possible? Yes, acknowledging that, yes, you are. If you are a person who is making those changes in 2020, good on you. You are worthy. You are so worthy, and you've been worthy this entire time. So acknowledging that's one of the first steps, is just becoming aware and acknowledging your thoughts and knowing that you're never, when it comes to setting these goals and setting these intentions or just accepting that you love the way you are, just the way you are, it starts with just embracing that and knowing that you're never going to be ready. Some of the biggest things that I've done in my life when it comes to opening, a practice, starting another business, helping my brother start a business, helping people have breakthroughs in their health and healing, starting a podcast, writing a book, all of these things, starting chiropractic school, playing rugby, I was never actually ready. And I invite you to consider that you're probably, when it comes to these bigger things, and big doesn't necessarily mean like expansive, but it could be going inward, you are never going to be ready. And that you need to acknowledge that you are that person that you want to become right here, right now, and feel into that and allow yourself to step and stand into that, because you're never going to feel ready. You're never going to feel ready. Life is not about feeling comfortable all the time. When you set an intention because you want to step into something and access that deeper part of yourself you know that you are capable of, it starts with finding that sense of there's a little bit of instability, and yet finding the stability within it too. So like I said, it's this dance. Coming back to what I was mentioning earlier, how do we do that? I'm not saying if you've never climbed a mountain to go climb Mount Everest, right? That's taking a comfort zone that's this size if you're watching the video cast and boom, going super big. You might lead into collapse and instability and breakdown. Now, if you're cool with breakdown, fine. But when you expand so quickly, so fast, and you haven't trained yourself to expand the comfort zone in a much more sustainable fashion, that's when more of the self-sabotaging can kick in, because you set a goal that's so out of range that you start to say, I'm not possible. This isn't possible. I can't do this. I'm not worthy. How is this ever going to happen? And boom, boom, we're right back to where we started. So part of it starts with subtle behaviors, subtle beliefs, subtle acknowledgments of what you're already capable of, and just slight stretches here and there. Side note, this is the way that I work with people in the office. When the spine is so contracted and the nervous system is so stressed, we can't just rip it open, especially people who have gone through trauma, who have gone through a lot of instability in their life. We have to build the stability first with where they're at now, and then slowly and sustainably start to expand that comfort zone. Now, I will admit, I am a person where I like to really stretch really far, really fast, and that's worked out for me for the most part. And I do these things that I'm about to mention on a daily basis to continuously just ever so slightly stretch myself into that range of I feel slightly uncomfortable, and in that level of discomfort, I know that I'm growing. I know that I'm growing on the inside and I'm growing on the outside, and that, again, you don't have to self-sabotage and you don't have to create so much challenge and so much instability to create growth, but it's just those subtle things, right? So a couple things that I personally like to do on a daily basis, if not on a weekly or a monthly basis, is I call it microdosing stress, or microdosing expanding your comfort zone, which that's a whole nother topic. Microdosing, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother discussion and podcast, but that's a hot topic right now, is microdosing in our culture. And we'll get to that maybe down the road if you're curious. So I call it microdosing, these moments of stress or a little bit of discomfort, so to speak. And one of the ways I do that is through different breathing strategies. So I would suggest that if you're curious on this, Wim Hof is a really great example for those of you who are more sympathetically engaged, meaning you're more on that gas pedal. That can help not only re-regulate your nerve system, but challenge your breath, challenge your brain, make changes in your brain through this Wim Hof breathing, which is more counting your breaths, holding your breaths, big exhales. That's something I like to challenge myself. Cold showers. Be mindful if you're a female with your menstrual cycles. Sometimes when you're menstruating, cold showers can be a little bit challenging when it comes to just nurturing yourself more, but I like to take cold showers, saunaing, if I say it correctly, the sauna. Being in a really hot environment and then a really cold, just challenging my system. And again, for me, this may look different than for you. These are things I've been training myself on for a long time. Doing HIIT training, so high intensity interval training. For example, if you're on a walk or you're on a treadmill, running for a minute and then walking, and then running for a minute and then walking. So you feel that little bit of intensity and then you back off. Feel that little bit of intensity and then back off. As many of you know, I like to use birth as an example. So this is the same as when a woman is giving birth. You feel that contraction and you feel that pain and you move with it, and then you get a break. If you're trusting your innate birthing rhythms in a natural fashion. So again, a couple things: the Wim Hof breathing, cold showers, saunaing, HIIT training. Something that a lot of people don't realize too is trying new foods. Trying new foods that maybe freak you out a little bit, whether it's from a different culture or maybe you've never tried raw broccoli. Try it. Your brain trying something new just for that little bit helps expand that comfort zone. And really, as we start to expand that comfort zone, we're actually developing more resiliency and more adaptability in our nerve system so that you have more energy, more strength to handle more in your life. And I don't just mean that from a physical perspective, but what you're gonna notice is that you have more capacity to handle more bandwidth of emotion. You can be in a state of maybe a stressful or tense conversation and actually be in it because you've trained your mind and your body to deal with stress on a whole new level. Fasting. Michael just did a podcast about that. Check that one out on the Inspire Life podcast. importance of fasting, not from being so restrictive in your diet. For those of you who have struggled with, food mindfulness and having challenges in your relationship with food, I definitely suggest you hire a coach to help you with that, or a therapist, because fasting can make some triggers and cause some triggers. But fasting is another way that you can train your brain in this capacity to expand. Whether you do a 16-hour fast, a 24-hour fast, a 48-hour fast, heck, a week-long fast, whatever it is, everyone has a different range. Everyone has a different comfort zone. Remember that without judgment. And then another thing is the mind. So challenging yourself to think differently about who you are, knowing that you are powerful, you are worthy of incredible success. Because not only does these topics and these strategies that I've mentioned expand dealing with stress and avoiding the self-sabotaging, but knowing as you stretch into this that you're going to attract a level of success that maybe you've never experienced, and that can even cause some self-sabotaging, right? And even receiving that level of receiving that level of success, whether it's a promotion at your work or a financial goal that you have or a physical goal, training your mind that you are worthy right here, right now, and actually stepping into it and living it in the moment. Not that it's far out into the future, but that you are the embodiment of who you desire to be right here, right now, and living into that and accepting that, which can make you feel uncomfortable too, right? Think of the people in your life who, anytime that you're on the positive train and you're having that momentum in your life, sometimes there's people in our life who say, oh, well, that's too good to be true, or they bring you down. Think about that. Maybe those are people that you don't want to hang out with anymore. So I know I got a lot of tangents on this podcast, but coming back to the bigger picture, in the upper limit theory, I think this is a really important concept to get, that when you're setting these goals, setting these intentions, setting these resolutions, that you simply start to acknowledge, become aware, embody that stability and instability is part of life, growth and discomfort is part of life. We're not meant to live in this comfort zone because life likes to grow. Life likes to move to the edge. And you don't have to continuously self-sabotage yourself in order to actually make change. You can do it in a way that is way more sustainable, so you avoid the breakdown, you avoid the crash. And remember that everyone has a different comfort zone. Everyone has an upper limit theory, and know that you are worthy of success right here, right now, because you are successful. Embody that. You are successful. You are the embodiment of who you want to become. I guarantee if you can practice embodying that feeling in the now, you'll actually start to attract that in your life. You'll actually start to realize you have it all right here, right now, and bring on more of that abundance into 2020. So thank you all for tuning in on the Inspire Life podcast. I hope this is supportive of you as you move through your resolutions. When you get to those months where you're feeling off track, tune into this podcast and remember that it's part of life, and acknowledge that sometimes those thoughts come in because our nervous system wants to feel comfortable, and that you are worthy of stepping into that new way of being, new way of thinking, new way of acting, and just embodying that fully. So thanks so much for tuning in, you guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.